Creating a Twitter bot is a great project to put on a resume. People can see the results without having to pull down your code, and it shows you know how to work with external APIs. Today, we'll create a simple Twitter bot to post financial news articles from an RSS feed using Twitter's APIs. All you'll need is a Twitter account and Python. First thing you'll need to do is log into your account, then go to developer.x.com, then press Developer Portal in the top right. Then scroll down and sign up for a free account. And then you'll need to enter some information about why you're using the API. Just put some words in here about how you're going to use it, and then check all the boxes and press submit once you're done. Once you're past that page, you'll be taken to the portal. First thing we'll do is press the keys and tokens. So this is where we get the API keys for our bot. It's very important to not share these keys with anyone. You should treat it like a username and password. I'm showing them to you because I'm just going to delete this account afterwards. And once we get to the code, I'll show you how to hide this stuff so you don't have to hard code the values in your program. So go up to the top to consumer keys, press regenerate, and then save these values somewhere and remember which is which. Then we'll go down to access token and secret, and we'll do the same thing. Finally, we'll want to go to settings, and then at the bottom, user authentication settings, press setup, select read and write under app permissions, select web app for your type of app, and these values aren't really important for what we're trying to do, so just copy the values that I have here. Then scroll down to the bottom and press save. And we won't need these keys for what we're doing, but you could just copy them down in case you need them for something later. So switching over to a code editor, the first thing we'll need to do is import Tweepy. This is a Python library that we'll use as a client to the Twitter API. And if you don't have it, you can install it using pip. So once that's installed, we will create a connection to the client. So this is where we will pass in the keys that we saved before. So we need the consumer key, the consumer secret, the access token, and the access token secret. So paste in the values that you got from the developer portal. And again, don't share these with anyone. We'll go over a method shortly to remove these from the code. So once you have the values entered, we can try and create a test tweet. So just define a string with some text, and then we will call client.createTweet and pass in the text. And then go ahead and run the code. If everything worked, we can go over to the Twitter account, refresh the page, and the tweet should be there. So back to the editor, we actually want a way to hide these keys from our code. So to do this, we'll create a new file called .env. And this is just a text file that we can use to store some environment variables, and then we can read them in our code. So just copy all the keys into the new file. Then to access these, we'll use the load.env function from the .env library. And if you don't have this library installed, you could just install it with pip. We'll also need to import the OS library. And then what this allows us to do is call the load.env function, and then we can access our environment variables by calling os.getEnv and passing in the name of the environment variable. So for now, let's just comment this stuff out and print this out and see what we get. So after we run it, you can see that we get the environment variable that we stored in the .env file. So this will allow us to remove the hard-coded values from our code. And if you're going to push this to GitHub, then don't push the .env file, again, because that's where the keys are stored. So you want to have a copy of the .env file with the keys on whatever machine you're running it on. And then we could use getEnv to load in the environment variables to build out our client. So now to clean this up a little bit, we'll just extract this into its own functions. So we'll define a function getClient that returns a reference to the client. And then we'll define a function createTweet that takes in the client and tweet text and sends the tweet out. So to test this out, we'll create the client by calling the function and then try sending out another tweet. So go ahead and run the code, and then we'll go check Twitter. And as you can see, our new tweet is now showing up. So now that the client is working, we'll start building out the logic of the bot. This bot will post financial news articles from an RSS feed. I'll put a link in the description explaining what an RSS feed is, but it's basically a stream of news updates from a specific source. You don't have to use an RSS feed, the bot can post whatever you want, but in this example, we'll parse an RSS feed and post tweets for financial news updates. If you want to follow along, we'll use a Python library called feedparser. If you don't have feedparser, again, you could just install it using pip. So for now, let's just import the library, and then comment this stuff out for now so we don't send any tweets. So the parse function of the feedparser library takes in a URL, and it will parse an RSS feed and return the results. There's many RSS feeds available. You could just use Google to find one. This one specifically is for financial news. So now we can just print out the feed and run the code. And it worked, but the output's not very readable. So what we can do is import the pprint library to clean up the output a little bit. So just go ahead and import pprint. Then instead of using print, use pprint. And this will format the output for us to make it nicer. So now just scrolling up a little bit, you can see obviously it worked. We have some information about news articles. So there's a lot of information here, so let's just print out the keys of the feed. And the entries field is what we're going to be most interested in. So go ahead and print that out and run the code. And you can see this field has access to authors, links, the summary of the article, title of the article, what time it was published at, etc. So let's just print out the first article for now. And these are the fields that we're going to be interested in. We're going to keep track of the author, the link, when it was published, the summary, and the title. And this will be the information that we post to Twitter. So to keep track of this information, we'll create a new file called article.py. So we're going to make this class a data class, which is essentially just a class that's designed to only hold values. I have a video on this that I will link if you're confused by this, but it's basically just a fancy way to make a class. So for instantiating the class, we'll just fill out the fields that we're interested in. Now we can go back to our main module and import the class. And then scroll down and we'll create an article from the first article returned. Let's instantiate the new class now. We'll extract the fields we're interested in and then build out the class with those fields. Then go ahead and print it out and run the code. And we now have a class that stores information about each article. So now let's try to send a tweet out with this information. So we'll update our function to take in an article. Then we'll access the fields we're interested in and build a string from those fields. For now, let's just print out the tweet and comment out the line that creates the tweet so we don't actually send anything out. And then we can call getTweet with the client and the article and run the code. And this is the text that we're going to post to Twitter. And let's just add some text that explains what each field is to make it clear. And we can run the code again just to make sure it works. So now what we'll do is shorten the link that we get returned from the article. Twitter has a limit to the amount of characters that we can post, so we could import a library to shorten the link. So we'll import the library pyshorteners, and again, if you don't have this, you can use pip to install it. And then we can instantiate an object with this class. Then we can pass in our link to this object and it'll shorten the URL. So now we can run the code again, and you can see now the URL is much shorter. So now let's try sending this tweet out. First we have to uncomment this line that creates the tweet. Then run the code, and looks like it worked, so let's go check Twitter. Going back to Twitter and refreshing the page, you can see that the tweet was sent. It has the title, summary, the author, and then the link. And then we could just test the link out, and it looks like it worked. Back to the editor, just to clean this up a little bit, let's take these two functions that handle posting tweets to Twitter. Then we'll create a new file and put the functions in that file. We'll also need to add the imports for the libraries we need and recreate the shortener object. Then we can import those functions in the main file. So when the bot runs, it's going to loop through all the articles and try to post all of them. But we don't want to repost links that we already posted. So we need some way to keep track of which links we posted every time the bot runs. To do this, we'll create a class that handles writing each link to a file after posting it and reads in the file with the links before the bot runs. And before we post any tweets, we'll use the generated file to check if we already posted that link. So let's create a new file and define a new class called state. Since we want to keep track of unique links, we use a set as the data structure. And we need a variable that stores the file name for reading and writing. We're going to use a JSON file to do this, so we also need to import JSON. So first we need a function called load that'll load in the file and set the posted links variable. If the file already exists, we'll open it and then read in the links. The first time the bot runs, the file won't exist, so we'll default post the links to an empty set. Then we need a save function that'll write the links to the file after it's done running. We'll create a couple of helper methods, so the first one will just check if the link is in the set, and another one that adds the link to the set. So let's go back to the main file and import this class. So before the bot runs, we'll load in the links, and check if it's already been posted when we create the tweet. We'll also pass in the state object to create tweet. Then within the function, we want to check if the link is already posted, which we can do using the isPosted function. And only if it's not posted do we want to create a tweet. And we can just print something out to let us know. Then once it's posted, we want to add the link to the set. Then we can add a line if it's already posted that just lets us know. And then after the bot posts links, we want to call the save function. The save function will write all the links to the file after posting tweets, and the next time the bot runs, it'll load those in and check if we already posted it. So real quick, we're just going to go to the create tweet function and remove summary. Twitter has a character limit when setting out tweets, so sometimes if the summary is too long, it won't let you post it, so we'll just remove it for now. So now let's see what happens when we try to create a tweet with the second article. So we can run the code, and you can see that the link was not in the JSON file. And if we go over to the JSON file, we can see that the link is in there now. So when the bot runs again and we load this file in, we won't post the tweet with this link. Now we can go over to Twitter and we can see that it posted. So we can try to run this again, and you can see that we get link already posted because we already posted this article. So now let's create a tweet with the next article. And you can see that we don't have this link. But after it ran, it added that link to the JSON file. Then going back to Twitter, we see that the next article did post. So another thing we could do is check if the article was published in the last hour, which we could do with the published field. So just printing it out and running the code, this is what it looks like. And this will prevent us from posting any old articles if they make its way into the feed. So for now, let's just comment out create tweet while we make this. And then in the Twitter file, we'll create a new function called isWithinLastHour. And it'll take in the published field as a parameter. So to parse the date string, we'll need some new libraries. So first, import parser from dateutil, and we'll import time delta and datetime. Then finally pytz to check for time zones. So first we need to parse the string, and this function takes in a string and returns a datetime object. Then we'll convert the time zone to UTC, so we have a standard time zone to work with. Then we'll get the current time in UTC using datetime.now. We'll subtract the two times, and we'll return true if the difference is less than 1 hour. Then to debug for now, we'll just print out each of these variables. So let's comment this stuff out for now so we don't post any tweets, and we'll test our new function. First we have to import it into the main file. So we'll use a list comprehension to loop through all the articles returned by feed and add them to a list. So now we have access to all the articles, so let's just try to print out the first 5. We'll run the code, and it works. These are the first 5 articles. So let's loop through the first 5 and try out this new function. We'll run the code again, and the first 5 return true, and it looks like our function's working. These were all published in the last hour. So now let's go over to create tweet, and we want to check if the article was published within the last hour before posting the tweet. If it wasn't posted within the last hour, we'll just return early. And a common thing to do when using APIs in this way is to implement some sort of wait time in between actually posting something, so we're not overloading the API and getting rate limited, and also retrying the post call just in case something failed. So we'll go ahead and implement this now. We'll need some new libraries for this. So we'll import random and time. And then in create tweet, we'll set a variable that denotes how many times we're going to try to send the tweet out in case it fails. And then I'm actually just going to refactor some of this to make it cleaner. So instead of checking if the link is not posted, instead we'll just check if it is posted and return early if it is. And then we could remove this if else branch, and this will just be our execution block where we try to send the tweet out. So first, let's loop through max attempts. This will be how many times we try to send the tweet out. And for debugging, we'll just print out the title of the article. We'll create a try except block to first try and create the tweet and then catch any exceptions. If we get an exception for any reason, we'll just print out the exception and which attempt we're on. And then if we're not on the last attempt, we're going to implement something called exponential backoff. This is standard practice for handling API failures, and it'll just wait an increasing amount of time for each failure. So we'll define a variable that denotes how long we're going to wait in seconds. And it's called exponential backoff because it scales exponentially with each attempt. So if the tweet succeeds, we'll just print something out to let us know. And another standard practice is adding some time in between each call. even if it's successful, so we don't get rate limited. So after each tweet is successfully posted, we'll just wait in between 30 and 120 seconds. So every time we try to send a tweet out, first we'll check if it was posted in the last hour. If the link was already posted, then we'll try to send the tweet 3 times. We'll catch any exceptions and retry with exponential backoff. And then whenever we send the tweet, we'll just wait some random amount of time in between each action. So now let's try and actually run this with all of the articles. Let's remove this because we don't need it anymore. Then we'll just loop through each article and try to send a tweet out. And we can also go ahead and remove these print statements because we don't need them anymore. So let's run the code. And it looks like we sent a tweet out with this text, and we're going to wait 61 seconds before we try it again. So let's go over to Twitter and see if it worked. And it looks like the tweets are posting. So now we can wait for the bot to finish running, and we'll check back later. And going back to the editor, it looks like it successfully posted all the tweets. We're waiting for a random amount of time in between each action so we don't get rate limited. It skipped links that were already posted, and skipped any articles that weren't published within the last hour. Going over to the JSON file, you can see that all the links were added in here. So the next time the bot runs, it'll load in this file and check each link to see if we already posted it. And just to show you that the save function is working, we'll just rerun this code. And you can see that nothing was actually posted because we already posted these links or the article wasn't within the last hour. So thanks for watching. I hope this was helpful. So again, this is a great beginner project because it shows you know how to work with APIs, and it's something that people can actually see and interact with. There's many possibilities for things you can do with this. This one's just posting financial articles. The next thing that you'd have to do, which I didn't go over, but I can if people are interested, is actually hosting this script somewhere. The simplest would just be using an AWS EC2 instance, which is what I did for my bots. But this is a great starting point. The hard part's done. Actually hosting it is pretty easy. Thanks for watching, and don't hesitate to reach out with any questions. If you learned something, please consider following me on these other platforms.